AITA for kicking my family out after they secretly gave my house to my brother? My name is Rachel Bennett. I am 35 years old and I am the deputy CEO at a sports nutrition company. People always ask me why I have not gotten married, as if there were something strange about it. The truth is much simpler. I do not want a serious relationship right now. My life is fine the way it is. I have a good job, my house, my routine, and a peace that took me years to build. My younger brother Jason is 28 years old. Last year he married his girlfriend Megan. They had been together for a long time, so nobody was surprised when they finally tied the knot. I, in fact, was very happy for them, so much so that I gave them nearly $15,000 for the wedding. It was not a small amount, not even with the salary I make. But Jason is my brother, and I wanted to help them start their married life well. The wedding was beautiful. Megan looked great in her dress and Jason could not stop smiling. The ceremony was at the church my family has always attended in Mesa, and the reception was at a hall in Gilbert. Everything was going well until the usual topic came up. Rachel, and when is your turn? My Aunt Patricia blurted out right in the middle of the meal with a smile that was not innocent at all. You are already the only single woman left in the family, my Aunt Linda added as if she were telling me something I did not already know. My mom did not stay behind either. I can already imagine how nice it would be to have kids running around in that big house you have. I smiled and nodded as always. Inside, I was just asking life for patience to not lose my temper. My family acts as if being single is a flaw, as if everything I have built is worthless if I do not have a husband or children. After the wedding, Jason and Megan went to live in a small condo owned by my parents in Tempe. It is small, yes, but it is fine, and besides they do not pay rent. My parents practically lent it to them. My mom asked me to help them with the utilities, and since then I covered the electricity and water every month. It did not bother me to help. I have always been like that with my family, but sometimes I did wonder if they truly appreciated it. The first few months after the wedding were calm. I found Megan pleasant. At the Sunday family lunches at my parents' house in Mesa, she was always nice to me. She thanked me for helping with the bills and asked me how everything was going at the company. I thought we got along quite well. I have worked hard to get where I am. I started working at 16. I got my degree, kept preparing myself, and made my way up within the same company for 13 years. 3 years ago they named me deputy CEO. I earn well, very well, but not because it fell from the sky. I have worked my heart out for every step I climbed. 2 years ago I bought my house in Chandler. It has 4 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, good natural light, and a backyard that was the first thing I fell in love with when I saw it. It took me months to find it. I saw many properties before deciding. I wanted something close to the office in a quiet area, something that truly felt like mine. When I signed the deeds, I felt like I had finally reached a place I had earned all by myself. I took out a large mortgage, paid a down payment with my savings, and for years I cut back on everything to be able to pay for it. I bought that house with my money. Nobody gifted it to me, nobody handed it down to me. Every square foot cost me years of work. When I moved in, I gave my parents a copy of the key for any emergency. They helped me with some furniture, and at the time it seemed like the most normal thing in the world. They are my parents, I thought. I trusted them completely. The Sunday family lunches had existed since Jason and I were kids. We would sit around the same table as always in the house where we grew up, and my mom would prepare pot roast or baked chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. In theory, it was a space to spend time together, catch up, and feel like we were still a united family. For years it worked. Or at least I thought so. But over time something began to change. Megan started dropping increasingly uncomfortable comments during those lunches. She never said things up front. She did it carefully, casually. She would comment that the condo was already getting too tight for them. She talked about how comfortable it must be to have so much space for just one person. She never said my name, but we all knew who she was talking about. Yes, it is difficult, she said one Sunday while cutting her chicken. There are single people living in huge houses, and married couples squeezing in where the bed barely fits. My parents nodded as if she were saying something perfectly reasonable. I pretended not to understand, but of course I understood. Megan was setting the stage for something, and I did not like where it was going at all. The truth is that condo was not bad. It was small, yes, but it was free. They did not pay rent, and on top of that I helped them with the utilities. Many couples their age would have wanted an opportunity like that, but Megan spoke as if they were living in terrible conditions. At first I tried not to let it get to me. Family dynamics are complicated, and I did not want to cause a problem over a few comments, but the hints continued and became less subtle. Megan would sigh when she talked about her condo. She would say things like how there was even leftover space in my house. Jason started joining in as well. Someday we want to have children, he blurted out one afternoon, looking right at me. And kids need space. He said it as if I had to offer something, as if my house were a pending piece in their life plan. The worst part was seeing how my parents reacted. They agreed with them on everything. It seemed like I was selfish just for living in my own house, as if they forgot that I had been helping everyone financially for years. I paid Jason and Megan's utilities. I had given a large amount for the wedding. I had also lent money to my parents when they struggled with an expense. And yet, somehow the selfish one was me for not giving up the house that took me 13 years to buy. It made no sense, but nobody cared that it made no sense. 3 months after those comments started, I arrived at the Sunday lunch and felt something strange the moment I walked in. Everyone looked weird. My parents were exchanging glances with Jason and Megan as if they shared a secret. Megan could not stop smiling. It was not her usual polite smile. It was a huge, contained smile, like someone waiting for the exact moment to break some news. Furthermore, Jason kept touching her belly with an overly obvious tenderness. I am not stupid. As soon as I saw them, I knew. Megan was pregnant, and they were going to announce it that afternoon. The truth is I was glad. Jason has always been good with kids, and Megan, despite her hints, seemed capable of being a good mom. A baby felt like happy news for the family. I even thought for a second that maybe this would make them stop bothering me about being single. We sat at the table like every Sunday. My mom had made baked chicken and the smell filled the whole house. But before we started serving ourselves, Jason cleared his throat and asked for our attention. Megan and I want to tell you something, he said, taking her hand. We are going to be parents. My parents reacted as if they knew nothing, even though it was obvious they were already aware. My mom started crying with excitement, got up to hug Megan, and my dad shook Jason's hand with a proud smile I had not seen in a long time. Congratulations, I said, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. What great news. But my mom ruined the moment as soon as she opened her mouth. Well, at least one of my children is going to give me grandchildren, she said, looking straight at me. I thought I was going to be left longing for them. I bit my tongue. This was Jason and Megan's moment. It was not worth turning it into an argument about my life. Then Megan turned to me with that sweet voice she used when she wanted to disguise something ugly. Actually, Rachel, I have been talking to Jason and your parents about something important. It has to do with where we live. I stopped eating. What do you mean about where you live? Jason and my parents started nodding as if what was coming was perfectly logical. Megan continued. The truth is we do not think the way things are is fair. I looked at her without moving. You live alone in a huge house with empty bedrooms, she said. And we are in a tiny condo. Now the baby is coming and will need its own space. Aha, I replied slowly. And what does that have to do with me? My mom intervened immediately. Rachel, it is time you behave like a real sister, to show that you do love your brother and your future nephew. I felt a pit in my stomach. I already knew where this was heading, but I needed to hear it. And how am I supposed to show that? You have to give your house to Jason and Megan, my mom said completely naturally. They need it more than you do. I kept looking at her. I really thought I had misheard. Are you serious? Of course we are serious, my dad said. You would move into the condo where they live now. We could even make it official. You hand your house over to Jason, and we let you have the condo. I looked around at everyone. They were not joking. This was not a spontaneous thought. They had discussed this among themselves and had reached the conclusion that I had to give them my house. No, I said, standing up. No way. Rachel, my mom snapped, already annoyed. Do not be selfish. Selfish. I could not believe what I was hearing. That house cost me 13 years of work. Savings after savings. I bought it, I paid for it, I earned it. You are a single woman who is neither going to get married nor have kids, my dad said with a coldness that pierced right through me. Why do you want a house like that? The word hit me like a slap. My own father said that, as if my life had no value because it did not look like the one he wanted. Jason also chimed in. You are being very greedy, Rachel. You must be there for your family. I laughed, but it was a dry, bitter laugh. Greedy? I gave you nearly $15,000 for your wedding. I pay your utilities every month. In what part exactly am I greedy? That is different, Jason said. No, it is not different, I replied immediately. I am tired of you trying to make me out to be the bad guy. I am tired of you demanding more from me all the time. I am tired of it seeming like you always matter more than I do. That is not true, my mom said. But not even she sounded convinced. Well, then here is a solution, I said. Sell the condo, use it as a down payment, and buy something for Jason and Megan. My parents stayed quiet for a second. We cannot go around paying another mortgage, my dad said. Then live within what you can afford, I replied, grabbing my purse. But do not dream of taking my house from me just because you do not want to use your own money. I headed for the door and behind me the yelling began. You are being ridiculous, my mom screamed. Selfish, my dad blurted out. You are really crossing the line, Jason yelled at me. I turned around one last time. This conversation is over. I am not going to give you my house, and that is not going to change. I left there trembling with anger. When I got home, I walked in and stood still for a few seconds, looking at everything. The couch that took me months to buy. The kitchen table where I eat breakfast every day, my bedroom, with that morning light that made me fall in love with the house from the very first visit. That was my home. I had earned every corner, and I was not going to hand it over to people who thought I did not deserve it. They could call me selfish, cold, or whatever they wanted. They could continue with the speech that family comes first, but that house was mine, and I had no intention of giving in. I made myself some tea and sat in the living room looking out at the patio. For the first time in months, I felt peace. I had said no. I had set a clear boundary, and the world had not ended. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7. It was my mom. I did not answer. Then my dad called, then Jason, then Megan. I ignored all of them and got ready to go to the office as if nothing had happened. By lunchtime, messages poured in. Rachel, we need to talk. You are being very unfair, my mom wrote. Your brother needs your support. Family comes first, my dad sent. Megan cried all night because of what you said. You are hurting a pregnant woman, Jason texted. I loved you like a sister. I see now that I was wrong, Megan wrote. I deleted everything without replying. They wanted to make me feel guilty, and I was no longer willing to play that game. The calls continued for 3 more days. Every time the phone rang, it was one of them trying to wear me down. They also left voice memos, each one more dramatic than the last. Rachel, this is your mother. You are destroying this family with your selfishness. I am your father. You disappointed me. We did not raise you for this. It is Jason. Megan's health is being affected by the stress you are causing her. If anything happens to the baby, it will be your fault. That last one really infuriated me. Now they also wanted to blame me for any pregnancy complications, as if refusing to hand over my house could put a baby at risk. It was absurd, manipulative, and very low. I showed the messages to my coworker Melissa at the office. We have been working together for 8 years, and she knows my family situation quite well. Are they serious? She asked me, reading Jason's message. Apparently so, I told her. According to them, I am destroying a pregnancy by not giving my house away. That is completely devoid of logic. I know, but I needed to hear it from someone else. Melissa handed me back my phone and stared at me. Do not cave in, do not even think about it. That house cost you too much. They have no right to it. As the days passed, the messages got weirder. My mom sent me a Bible verse about loving your neighbor. My dad sent me a story about a woman who helped her sister by selling her a property at a low price. You could set the example, he wrote underneath. You still have time. I laughed to myself when I read it. They wanted me to set the example by giving up everything I had built. That was not nobility, that was letting myself be trampled on. Megan was the worst. She sent me an ultrasound photo with the text, "Your nephew is going to need a room. I hope you think about that." Another day she sent me a photo of her condo with the bed pushed against the wall and some stacked boxes and wrote, "Do you really want your family to live like this?" I felt like replying that they lived there for free, but I did not. Any reaction from me was only going to give them more fuel. By the end of the week, the calls and messages started to decrease. I thought maybe they had finally understood that I was not going to change my mind. I should have known it was not going to be that simple. That Friday I went to work as usual, but around noon I started feeling very sick. I already had a fever, my head hurt, and my body ached. I let my boss know that I was not feeling well, and that I was going to leave early. I left the office shortly after 2 in the afternoon. When I turned onto my street and saw my house, I immediately knew something was wrong. There was a moving truck parked right in front. My parents' car was also there. I felt my heart drop to the floor. I got out of my car, opened the door with my key, and walked in. What I saw made my blood run cold. My parents were inside my house packing my things. My mom was wrapping my plates in newspaper. My dad was taking books off the shelf and putting them in boxes. They had open drawers. They had moved things out of place. My house looked like it was caught right in the middle of a robbery. "What is going on here?" I yelled. They both startled. They literally looked like two people caught stealing, which was exactly what they were doing. "Oh, Rachel," my mom said, trying to sound calm. "We thought you were at the office." "I asked you a question," I said, barely restraining myself. "What are you doing in my house?" "We are helping you move," my mom answered as if there was nothing weird about that sentence. "Jason and Megan are coming to live here, and you are moving to the condo." I stared at her in disbelief. "I already told you I was not going to do that." "We all decided that you do not need so much space," my dad replied without stopping touching my things. "It is not fair that you have a house like this while they are going to have a baby." "I do not care what you have decided," I said, feeling my voice tremble. "This house is mine." But they kept packing as if I were not there. My mom folded one of my sweaters and put it in a box. My dad wrapped a picture frame and placed it next to other things. "Stop," I said. "Stop packing my things right now." "Rachel, do not make this harder than it already is," my mom answered. That was when I realized they were not going to stop, not with words, not with logic, not with anything. I went up to my bedroom, closed the door, and dialed 911. "I need to report that people broke into my house without permission," I said as soon as they answered. "They are taking my belongings out and refused to leave." The operator asked me a few quick questions. If I was in immediate danger, if I knew the people, if they were still inside the premises. "Yes, they are still here. They are my parents, but they do not have permission to be in my house or to move my things." "The unit has been dispatched," she told me. "Do not expose yourself and wait for backup." They did not take long to arrive. I went downstairs to open the door and explained everything to the 2 police officers who came in with me. My parents tried to pretend it was all a misunderstanding. "Officer, she is our daughter," my dad said. "We are just helping her with her move." "Did your daughter ask for your help?" one of the officers asked. My dad stayed silent for a second. "Well, not exactly, but we are her family." The other officer turned to me. "Ma'am, did you give them permission to enter or to take your things?" "No," I said with absolute clarity. "I told them several times that I am not moving anywhere." They had no authorization to enter or to move anything or to hire movers. The officers exchanged a look and then turned to my parents. "Sir, ma'am, you are going to have to come with us." "This is ridiculous," my mom screamed. "I am her mother. That does not give you the right to break into her house without permission," the second officer replied. My mom started screaming louder and arguing with them. My dad lost control and became agitated, moving toward one of the officers. He did not manage to do much because they restrained him immediately. They handcuffed him right there. They also took my mom away because she refused to leave and continued confronting the officers. I just stood in the living room watching them being taken away. The moving staff watched without understanding anything. "And what about the boxes?" one of them asked nervously. "Put everything back where it was," I answered. "And charge whoever hired you." When everyone finally left and the door closed, I sat down in the kitchen and remained motionless. My own parents had broken into my house to force me to leave. Truly, they had reached the point of thinking they could decide for me, walk in, pack up, and change my life just because. 2 hours later, my mom called me from the police station. "Rachel, you have to drop this," she said with that authoritative voice that no longer worked on me. "We are your parents, we only wanted to help you." "No," I replied. "Rachel, you cannot be serious." "I am completely serious." And I hung up on her. The next morning I went to the police station to formally confirm my police report. I was no longer willing to be anybody's doormat. If my parents had decided to cross that line, it was their turn to take responsibility. That same night they regained their freedom after posting bail. It did not surprise me. What did surprise me was that they did not call me immediately to keep yelling at me. Instead, the next morning my grandmother Lillian called me. She sounded tired, worried. "Rachel, your parents are very upset. They cannot believe you actually had them arrested. They broke into my house, Grandma. They were packing my things without my permission." I know, she told me in a low voice. "And I told them they had no right to your house, but calling the police on your own parents is a very harsh thing to do. And what did you want me to do? Ask them nicely to stop robbing me?" She sighed. "I do not know. This has already gotten out of control." I did not spin it out of control. They did. There was a silence. "Maybe you are right," she admitted. "But do not let this destroy the family." I could not help but answer her, "What family, Grandma?" "Because a family takes care of you, it does not use you. A family does not plan to take your house away from you." After that call, I did not hear from anyone for 3 days. And to be honest, the silence was a relief. No aggressive calls, no messages to make me feel guilty, no demands, just peace. Until a letter arrived. It was addressed to me, handwritten by my mom on her usual elegant stationery. I opened it in the kitchen and started reading. "Rachel, after thinking about it a lot and discussing it with your father and your brother, we have decided to cut you out of our lives. We no longer consider you our daughter. Your selfish actions made it clear to us that you do not care about your family. You chose a house over your own blood. We will not reach out to you again, and we do not want you to reach out to us. Signed, your ex-mother." I read the letter twice and left it on the table. I expected to feel sadness, anger, pain, something. But what I felt was relief. They thought that letter was going to destroy me. They surely imagined I was going to cry, ask for forgiveness, beg them to accept me back. But the only thing I felt was immense freedom. I was no longer going to have to endure their constant criticism. I was no longer going to have to justify my life. I was no longer going to have to hear that everything of mine was worth less because I was a single, independent woman. I poured myself some coffee and sat in the living room to look at my house, the one that had cost me 13 years to be able to buy, the one I almost lost because of the greed and nerve of the people who were supposed to love me the most. The following weeks were the most peaceful I had had in years. I went to work, came back to my house, rested, read, watched movies, and ate dinner in peace. I no longer had to worry about Sunday lunch. There was no more family drama. There was no longer anyone saying that I was selfish for living the life I chose. I learned from my grandmother that Jason and Megan were still in the condo. One day during one of our calls, she told me they are still there, they are getting settled in. The baby is due in a few months, and they are organizing things somehow. And my parents? I asked. They are thinking of selling their house and the condo too, she told me. They want to buy 2 smaller places. One for themselves and another for Jason and Megan. I stayed quiet for a moment. They could have done that from the very beginning. Yes, my grandmother replied very seriously. I think they just wanted to take advantage of you. They thought you were not going to put up a fight. Well, they were wrong. Sometime later I found out that they had indeed been talking about that plan for months. They had convinced themselves that I did not deserve that house because I was single and had no kids. They thought I was going to be too nice to deny them something like that. They thought I would be afraid to break the family harmony. They were wrong on both counts. The most ironic thing is that if they had approached me differently, I might have helped them. If my parents had spoken to me with respect and told me they wanted to support Jason and Megan to get something better, I might have considered lending them money or pitching in. I have always been generous with my family, but they did not want to ask for help. They wanted to take something away from me that they felt I should not have. They wanted to punish me for succeeding on my own. 6 months later I found out they did do what they had said. They sold both properties and bought 2 smaller places. Jason and Megan moved to a 2-bedroom apartment, and my parents to a condo. Apparently everyone was satisfied with that. I was also still living in my house, the house that took me so much work to buy. I still had my position, my independence, and above all, a peace of mind I did not know before, because I was always trying to please people who were never going to be satisfied with me. Sometimes I missed the idea of having a family. I miss what Sundays were supposed to be, the long meals, the important dates, that feeling of belonging to something. But I do not miss the criticism, I do not miss the manipulation, I do not miss feeling that nothing I did was enough if I did not live the way they wanted. My life is quiet now, yes, but it is mine. I make my decisions, I manage my money, I live in my house. Nobody tells me I am selfish for having worked hard. Nobody demands that I give up what I earn to give it to someone who simply wants it. I learned something very important from all this. Sometimes the people who say they love you are the same ones holding you back. Sometimes putting distance between yourself and toxic people is the only way to save yourself. My family thought they were teaching me a lesson when they cut me out of their lives. They thought I was going to come back begging for forgiveness and offering them my house so they would accept me again. What they actually did was show me something I had refused to see. They taught me that I am stronger than I thought. They taught me that I do not need their approval to be okay. They taught me that choosing myself is not selfish, it is a necessity. I understood that loving my family does not force me to give up my rights, my peace of mind, or what I built with years of effort. Sometimes a situation hurts more because it comes from people close to you, and that is why it takes time to accept that even within a family there must be clear boundaries. Comment. This story stayed with me long after I finished it. I've learned that setting clear boundaries is one of the most important ways we can show ourselves respect. It's okay to protect your peace, even when it upsets people you care about. You worked hard for what you have, and you don't owe anyone your happiness or your home. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's taking real responsibility for your life. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is create distance from relationships that hurt us. True healing starts when we stop feeling guilty for saying no. I hope you take some time to think about where you might need stronger boundaries in your own life. Being kind to yourself is just as important as being kind to others. You deserve to live with calm and dignity every single day. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.